Winter. 5 months of the year, the high elevations across the Sierra Nevada mountain range receive generous amounts of snowfall. It's this annual event when the high mountain terrain, forest lands, and waterways are blanketed with frozen water crystals. In the lower elevation, rain drenches the foothills, providing precious water which all life depends on. As winter gives way to spring, the changing season is evident by the sound of rushing water. Today, modern civilization controls millions of acre-feet of water that flow from the high country. Reservoirs hold the spring runoff. The water will produce electrical power to small towns and cities. Swollen rivers fill dams which hold water year-round for irrigation and drinking water. While over 90% of the water systems are constructed for the needs of modern civilization, not one of them provide a more suitable habitat for wildlife than a pond built by a rancher. In the early 1800s, cattle ranching began to take hold across the North American continent. To survive, cattle needed large areas of pasture lands, along with a year-round water source. In California, the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, along with the vast, wide-open grasslands of the San Joaquin Valley, provide the backdrop for hundreds of working cattle ranches. Ranch ponds, or stock ponds, are built by ranchers for one simple reason: to hold water throughout the summer months for livestock. Ponds built by ranchers are small compared to the large dams which are built to produce power. But if conditions are right, these small bodies of water can create an entire ecosystem for a variety of creatures. Life begins in the spring when the warmth of the sun raises the water temperature, allowing moss, algae, and plant life to grow. If the vegetation is left alone, it will thrive. Insects play a major role in a pond's ecosystem. In the spring, insects thrive above and below the water surface. Blackbirds and grackles patrol the shoreline, consuming large quantities of butterflies, gnats, and water bugs. Feathered hunters attack from the air. As honeybees pollinate the pond vegetation, they become targets for the northern oriole. black phoebe is a shy little flycatcher that spends the day chasing and feeding on insects. Flocks of cedar waxwings visit the pond tree line. Cedar waxwings are able to feed on insects that are so tiny they are undetectable to the human eye. Killdeer arrive to join in on the insect harvest. During the spring, this noisy plover will nest in open fields, on gravel roads, and near bodies of water. Killdeer are famous for building their nests right out in the open. Both adults share nesting duties. While their nest is merely an unlined depression in the ground, it is well camouflaged, as the spots on the eggs disguise them as stones. After a 28-day incubation period, the chicks hatch. Baby killdeer are born with their eyes wide open, and once their downy feathers dry, they leave the nest to search for food. In spring, love is in the air, and a variety of waterfowl are building nests, breeding, and caring for their young. Canada geese are America's most common waterfowl. In California, their numbers have increased dramatically. Thousands of Canada geese have given up their annual migration. Instead, they live year-round in the foothills and Central Valley, feeding on lawns and golf courses. With a lifespan of 30 years, the growing population of Canada geese are becoming an escalating problem to humans. After spending the last 2 years in a larva stage, dragonflies emerge from beneath the water surface. Before they can fly, dragonflies perch on the pond vegetation, allowing their wings to dry. Adults have less than 4 weeks to live. In this short amount of time, their mission is to take to the air, feed, avoid predators, find a mate, breed, and finally lay their eggs. Males and females bond, fly in tandem, then dip into the water, allowing the female to release her eggs. Landing on the pond algae allows egg laying to be more precise. In spring, the pond's water temperature rises to 78 degrees. Bass, crappie, and perch respond to the warmer conditions. The fish become more active as they search for food, and dragonflies are on the menu. The dragonfly's movements attract the fish into the breeding areas. The fish patrol the shoreline or hide under the pond vegetation, waiting for the opportunity to strike. As fish move into shallow water to feed, they risk becoming food themselves. Egrets, herons, and fish-eating ducks patrol the shallow water, taking a number of perch and bass. The great egret is found in fields, ponds, and marshlands. When stalking fish, egrets extend their necks to obtain a better view of the surrounding area. Head movement helps egrets determine the fish's exact distance. Pursuing fish from beneath the water surface is a shy, skillful little hunter. The pied-billed grebe can be found on any body of water that supports a population of fish. To avoid predators, fish seek out the safety of deeper water. However, they are still in harm's way when they are pursued by deep-diving ducks such as cormorants and mergansers. Ranch ponds are often visited by river otters. River otters are capable of diving to depths of 50 feet to pursue fish. While grebes and egrets take fish from along the pond shoreline, a superb hunter strikes from above. Ospreys live near bodies of water and feed exclusively on fish. Long legs, sharp talons, and keen eyesight allow this bird of prey to pluck fish from beneath the water surface at depths up to 3 feet. One out of 3 attempts, the osprey is successful. After spending the winter in Mexico and South America, ospreys return to the United States to breed and raise their young. Feeding alongside the fish-eating ducks are a variety of waterfowl that rely on the pond vegetation for food. Ranch ponds are shallow enough to allow the sun's rays to reach the muddy bottom, stimulating the growth of aquatic weeds and plants. The American coot or mud hen lives year-round on the low elevation waterways and feeds exclusively on pond vegetation. Mallards are the most common duck found on ranch ponds. Dabbling on the water surface, they consume a variety of plants and water bugs. On their long journey north from their South American wintering grounds, cinnamon teal stop to rest and feed on a number of ranch ponds throughout California. Out of all migrating ducks, cinnamon teal are the last to leave these sanctuaries. In June, they fly north to nest and raise their young among their Canadian breeding grounds. Bullfrogs are native to the eastern states. They were introduced into California in the 1860s. Except during the breeding season, bullfrogs are quiet, solitary creatures. The month of June is the breeding season. Only male bullfrogs produce deep calls. Male bullfrogs are territorial and aggressively defend their surroundings. At the height of the breeding season, the competition for the females result in a chorus of calls that travel great distances and can be heard coming from every corner of the ranch pond. As summer gives way to fall, North America's waterways are under siege. Lakes, reservoirs, wetlands, and marshes provide refuge to millions of migrating ducks, geese, swans, and shorebirds. Wary travelers arrive from northern Alaska, the Canadian Arctic, and Russia's Wrangel Island. They travel the Pacific Flyway, seeking refuge on thousands of ice-free waterways throughout California. "60% of the waterfowl that travel the Pacific Flyway will spend the winter in the San Joaquin Valley. Snow geese, white-fronted geese, northern shovelers, and pintails settle in among the National Wildlife Refuge complexes. "10% of the feathered migrants will land on the ranch ponds throughout the foothills. These winter visitors will share the sanctuaries with a variety of year-round residents. Western grebes, eared grebes, and bufflehead ducks have traveled thousands of miles to spend the winter among the ranch ponds of California. For the next 6 months, gadwalls will rely on the pond's vegetation for food and shelter. While a variety of waterfowl populations generally decline, gadwalls have increased to record numbers. Calm, freshwater ponds are ideal habitats for ring-necked ducks. To obtain aquatic vegetation, these deep-water divers are capable of diving to depths of 40 feet. November. Ranch pond water levels have dropped significantly. Ponds that are not fed by underground springs rely entirely on rainfall to maintain adequate water levels. Killdeer forage for food along the shoreline mudflats. Ponds with low water levels attract a variety of fish-eating ducks. The hooded merganser is the smallest of the 3 merganser species and is restricted to the North American continent. Hooded mergansers feed on fish, insects, and crawfish. This small duck is capable of consuming several crawfish in a single day. In the month of November, lakes in the Sierra Nevada mountains freeze, forcing bald eagles to migrate to the low country where the water remains open. Bald eagles feed on fish and waterfowl, making foothill ranch ponds ideal feeding grounds for migrating eagles. By the late 1960s, the bald eagle was listed as an endangered species. In California, less than 30 nesting pairs remained in the state. A nationwide ban on the use of DDT took effect in 1972, and over time, this enabled bald eagle reproduction rates to return to satisfactory levels. Over the last 50 years, bald eagle nesting sites have risen from 30 to over 200 across the state. By December, the lack of rainfall allows portions of the ranch pond bottom to become exposed. Pond vegetation becomes more accessible. Fish cling to life in shallow, oxygen-depleted water. Great egrets gather, position themselves along the pond shoreline, and begin to pick off vulnerable fish. The dead of winter. Evidence that storms are avoiding California can be seen throughout the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Mountain peaks, usually covered by 15 feet of snow, are barren and dry. The Sierra Nevada snowpack is 9% of normal, and January 2012 will go into the record books as the driest January in over 150 years. In the foothills, ranch ponds have not received adequate rainfall in over 9 months, and many succumb to the winter drought. Waterfowl relocate to ponds and reservoirs where water levels have been maintained by underground springs. A number of ducks will leave the foothills, fly to the San Joaquin Valley, to seek out the wetlands among the national wildlife refuges. To avoid a catastrophe, ranchers rely on other methods to produce water. Since 1830, windmills have been used to collect water. They are still used today to fill concrete troughs and water tanks. By the middle of March, there is 6 weeks left in the rainy season, and rivers, lakes, ranch ponds, and grasslands remain locked in California's ongoing drought. As spring arrives, the jet stream drops well into the southwestern states. A number of impressive weather systems have formed out in the Pacific Ocean and are moving into California. The last 2 weeks of March, storm clouds release over 5 inches of rain across Northern California. The ground is unable to absorb the precipitation. Water collects in creek beds, flows down country, feeding drought-stricken ponds and reservoirs. Small ranch ponds that have been dry for over 6 months fill to capacity in less than 48 hours. Temperatures drop, and snow falls to elevations below 2,000 feet. 4 months late, the first major storm arrives. As the rainy season comes to an end, California's total rainfall reaches 60% of normal. Enough precipitation has fallen to produce lush green grass in the foothills and across the San Joaquin Valley. In the Sierra Nevada mountain range, the late March storms have increased the snowpack to over 6 feet. The majority of ranch ponds have filled to capacity. ponds which have dried and refilled will take 3 years to fully recover. Fish, aquatic insects, dragonfly larvae, along with hundreds of other pond residents, have either relocated or died among the dry mudflats. Unaffected by the drought conditions, bullfrogs emerge from beneath the mud where they have spent the last 5 months in hibernation. Nothing represents the approaching days of summer better than the presence of the western pond turtle. The western pond turtle is the only turtle native to the western states, and today it is a species of special concern. Their numbers are declining due to habitat loss, predators, and from the introduction of non-native turtle species. By June, 90% of the waterfowl have left the foothill ponds and the San Joaquin Valley wetlands to return to Alaska and Canada. Bald eagles soar to heights of 2,000 feet. The high altitudes allow eagles to catch easterly winds that will carry them back to the cooler temperatures of the Sierra Nevada mountains. As bald eagles leave the low country, ospreys are returning from South America. Here they will breed and raise their young. Ospreys often use the same nest year after year. The seasons have turned full circle. Late spring rains have raised water levels, and a number of year-round residents are nesting and raising their young. Today, fewer ranch ponds are being constructed. However, thousands are still in use. While these water systems were constructed to provide water for livestock, they continue to create valuable habitat for hundreds of creatures. Today, it is estimated that over 85% of the population of waterfowl, shorebirds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish rely on these sanctuaries for their survival.